So if you're a woman, say, approaching or past your 40th birthday,
Yeah.
you've definitely heard the story.
Oh,
It's just,
absolutely.
it's in the culture everywhere. This idea that you're just, destined for this huge, depressing drop in sexual desire.
It's a cliff you're supposed to fall off of.
Exactly, a cliff. It's this widely accepted belief, and it causes so much anxiety. It basically defines midlife sexuality as just a decline.
And that narrative, as powerful as it is really a massive oversimplification. I mean, it's often rooted in some pretty ageist ideas and, frankly, outdated science.
Right.
When you actually look at the full scope of the research, this idea of a universal straight-line decline just isn't there. So our mission today is to get completely beyond that narrow biomedical view that basically pathologizes aging.
Yes. We're not talking about a loss. We're talking about a transformation. We
Yeah.
really want to dig into what the research says is actually happening to desire after age 40.
Because the story is so much more complex.
And, honestly, way more interesting than just the simple decline model.
Exactly. The central idea in all the material we looked at is that female sexuality after 40 is really defined by a metamorphosis, not a deficiency.
Okay, a metamorphosis.
Yeah, and to really get it, we have to use this modern, more holistic framework. It's called the biopsychosocial model.
Biopsychosocial. Okay, break that down.
It just means that desire is this dynamic thing. It's a product of three interwoven factors: your biology, your psychological state, and then your social and, your relationship environment.
So you have to look at all three.
You have to look at how all three pillars are interacting with each other to get the full picture of how desire evolves.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's unpack this then, and maybe start with the biological side of the equation.
Right, the hardware.
Yeah, because we know that period around age 40, perimenopause, it brings real hormonal and physical shifts. That part is undeniable.
It is, but we need to look past just hormones are dropping and really focus on the consequences of those changes.
And one of the biggest ones is,
Ooh.
what is it called? Genitourinary syndrome of menopause? GSM.
Exactly, GSM. And this is the direct physiological reality of what happens when estrogen plummets in the genital area.
So what are we talking about physically?
We're talking vaginal dryness, a thinning of the tissues, that's called atrophylous elasticity, and just reduced blood flow to the whole area.
So, okay, on a physical level, the machinery is just less lubricated and less resilient.
That's a good way to put it.
But why does that matter so much for desire? It sounds like a problem lube could fix, but I get the feeling it's deeper.
Oh, it's so much deeper. It has this direct, powerful inhibitory effect on desire because GSM very frequently leads to painful intercourse.
Which is clinically called dyspareunia.
Right. And this is the absolute key insight. When your body anticipates pain, that becomes the most powerful inhibitor there is. It's a basic protective mechanism.
So your brain predicts that sex is going to hurt.
It just shuts down the whole system automatically. Think of it this way, right? Your body won't let you run a marathon on a broken knee. Pain is the emergency brake, and it gets slammed to the floor before desire can even get out of the driveway.
The desire signal just doesn't get sent.
It just doesn't. The body ceases to send those signals when it expects a painful outcome. So addressing that pain, maybe through localized estrogen or other treatments, that's the first biological step.
That reframes GSM completely. It's not just a symptom, it's a core inhibitor of libido.
Okay, so we hear a lot about estrogen. What about testosterone? That plays a role too, right?
It's a critical point. We focus so much on estrogen, but testosterone is vital for female libido.
Right.
And while the ovaries don't just abruptly stop producing it, that gradual decline, it does start to contribute to changes.
And what does that decline affect specifically?
It mostly hits what you might call your baseline libido.
Right.
Testosterone is really linked to sexual motivation, to the frequency of spontaneous sexual thoughts.
That sudden, out-of-nowhere feeling, that's the one, that internal and molivizing. As testosterone declines, women often report fewer of those flashes of desire. It's a subtle change, but it's a real biological shift.
And I know we can't forget the other hormones in the mix.
Absolutely. There are indirect factors, like fluctuating progesterone that messes with your mood and sleep.
But the big one is stress, right? Cortisol.
Cortisol is insidious. I mean, think about midlife stress. Career, family, parents. You're flooded with cortisol. And that chronic stress actively dampens the entire regulatory center for your sex hormones.
So when you're in survival mode,
Your body just sees sex as not essential. It actively suppresses the whole system. It connects the emotional side right back to the biological one.
it does. Okay, that covers the biological baseline.
Okay.
Now, this next part, the psychological dimension, I think this is where it gets really empowering. This is the big aha moment.
I agree.
We're talking about the distinction that researchers like Dr. Rosemary Bassall made famous.
Yes. Spontaneous versus responsive desire. And truly, truly understanding this can change everything for a woman's sexual life after 40.
So let's define them. Spontaneous desire. That's what we all think of as libido, right? It just,
Pops into your head.
yeah, it rises suddenly, internally. It's the engine running on its own. More common when you're younger.
Responsive desire, on the other hand, is completely context dependent. It doesn't show up out of the blue. It emerges after some kind of stimulation has already started.
So physical, emotional.
Right. You start to feel the desire because you're already kissing or cuddling or having an intimate conversation. It's generated in response to connection.
And here's the huge shift the research points to. For so many women over 40, the whole engine of sexuality shifts from being mainly spontaneous to mainly responsive.
That's it. And it is not a loss of capacity.
It's a change in the ignition mechanism.
Exactly, the ignition mechanism. And that is the crucial takeaway for you and for your partner. If you sit around waiting for spontaneous desire to strike like it did in your 20s,
You're going to think it's broken.
you'll be waiting forever, and you'll decide desire is lost. But if you get that desire might follow arousal, not precede it, you change your whole approach. You stop waiting and you start creating the conditions.
Okay, but let's be practical. How do you do that? I mean, if you're not in the mood, why would you start touching or kissing? Doesn't that
Yeah.
feel fake? Performative.
That's the million-dollar question. It means you have to be intentional. You put effort into non-pressured physical connection.
Like just cuddling on the couch.
Exactly. Kissing, touching, no agenda. That kind of thing triggers the physical arousal mechanisms, blood flow, lubrication. And when the body starts to respond physically, the psychological part, the desire, can then catch up and follow.
So you're not waiting for the magic hurrah.
You're actively, intentionally creating the space for it. It's a game changer.
That framing is just incredibly liberating. Which brings us right to the next segment, the psychological upsides. The things that can actually boost satisfaction in midlife.
Yes, we focus so much on decline, but there is immense psychological growth happening. Confidence gained from decades of experience is a huge one.
A huge one. By your 40s and 50s, women have this profound self-knowledge. They know what pleases them. And the sources all point to women feeling more confident actually communicating those needs.
Or even just exploring on their own, that self-consciousness of your youth.
Oh, it just fades. And it's replaced by a better body acceptance, a clearer sense of your own sexual agency.
And that agency is a powerful aphrodisiac. When you're comfortable in your skin and you know what you want, you're not performing anymore.
You're participating in your own pleasure.
Exactly. And that often leads to a higher quality of sexual experience, even if the frequency isn't the same.
And there's another huge practical freedom here. The end of worrying about unplanned pregnancy.
Incredibly liberating. When you remove that reproductive imperative, sex is no longer about biology or risk.
It can just be for pleasure.
Purely for pleasure, for intimacy, for connection, that psychological freedom is massive.
We also see a big shift in priorities when the empty nest phase starts.
That's right. It loops right back to time and mental energy. When the kids are more independent, couples suddenly have privacy again.
And brain space.
Yes, less cognitive load. So you can reinvest that energy back into the relationship. To schedule that intentional connection we were just talking about, that can absolutely spark a sexual renaissance.
But okay, if we're talking upsides, we have to acknowledge the major psychological dampeners of midlife.
Of course. We mentioned stress and cortisol earlier, and it's worth saying again. Anxiety, depression, chronic stress, they are potent libido killers.
The sandwich generation pressure is real. Caring for parents, career demands.
All of it. If your mental well-being isn't a priority, that physiological dampening we talked about in the biology segment, it just becomes overwhelming.
So it's not just a feeling. High cortisol is actively telling your body intimacy is a low priority.
That's precisely it. When your body is fighting fires all day, it just can't get into that relaxed, vulnerable state needed for desire to show up, especially responsive desire.
Which brings us perfectly to context. Because desire doesn't exist in a vacuum, does it? It's living and breathing in your relationship. The social part of that biopsychosocial model.
And if you ask researchers what the single strongest predictor of a woman's sexual satisfaction is at this stage of life, it's not her hormone levels.
It's the quality of the long-term relationship.
Every time.
It seems obvious, but what are the specific dynamics that just kill desire in a long-term partnership?
Well, the list is pretty common, but it's devastating. Unresolved resentment is a big one.
I can see that.
Poor communication, the sheer boredom of routine, and this is crucial, a lack of non-sexual intimacy.
Right. We just expect good sex to happen without nurturing the day-to-day connection.
And for women whose desire is often so tightly linked to that emotional connection, feeling unheard or taken for granted, it's like a light switch.
Off.
Completely off. Emotional support, vulnerability, feeling like you have an equal partner, that's not extra stuff. That is the precondition for desire to flourish.
And then there are the pressures from the outside. The societal challenge, the message our culture sends about older women is just terrible.
It really is the invisible woman syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, what it is.
This constant media barrage of ageist narratives makes women internalize this belief that their sexual lives should be over. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Why bother investing if society tells you you're past your prime?
Exactly. Pushing back on those narratives is a huge part of this.
It really is. And on that note, the research mentions something encouraging about satisfaction over a lifetime.
Yes, the U-shaped curve. Some big studies suggest that sexual satisfaction might dip during those really high-stress child-rearing and career-building years.
The late 30s and 40s.
Right. But then it often rises again in the 50s and 60s. The focus shifts from frequency to quality and emotional connection. The sex might be less frequent, but it's often reported as being way more satisfying.
Okay, so we focused a lot on transformation, but we have to be really clear. For some women, a genuinely distressing loss of desire does happen, and that needs professional attention.
Absolutely. If the lack of interest is persistent, if it's not responding to stimulation, and this is the most important part, if it is causing the woman significant distress, then we might be looking at a clinical diagnosis.
And that's called female sexual interest arousal disorder, or FSIAD.
Correct. As defined in the DSM-5.
And that qualifier significant distress, that's the key, isn't it? It's what turns a natural life change into something that needs care.
Precisely. If you're not bothered by the change, it's not a disorder. But if you are, it's time to get help.
So what are the common clinical causes that need to be ruled out?
It's a pretty long list that needs a good medical workup. Untreated physical issues like severe GSM causing pain is a big one. Also, underlying conditions like diabetes or heart disease. And of course, medication side effects.
Medication is a huge, often overlooked culprit.
Massive. SSRIs, the antidepressants, are notorious for blunting libido. Some blood pressure meds can do it too.
And beyond the physical, FSIA can also come from really severe relationship problems or even past trauma, right?
Yes. But the crucial framing here is that this is not just getting older. When FSIA is diagnosed, it means there's a treatable medical or psychological issue that needs to be addressed.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to the core finding. The real question isn't, do women lose desire?
No, it's how does desire evolve?
And that journey is unique for every woman, shaped by that interplay of biology, psychology, and her social world.
And if you're navigating this, we basically have 4 key actionable takeaways from the research. First, reframe the whole narrative.
Get rid of that deficit model.
Yes. Embrace transformation and growth. Your sexuality is changing, not dying.
Second, prioritize holistic health. Address physical stuff like GSM right away. Manage your stress, work on your relationship. They're all connected.
They're inseparable. Third, and this is maybe the most powerful tool for couples, educate yourself and your partner on responsive desire.
Desire can be built.
Yeah.
You don't just wait for it.
Exactly. Intentionally setting the stage for arousal through low-pressure touch and intimacy is revolutionary.
And finally,
if you are in persistent distress, get multidisciplinary help. See a gynecologist who gets menopause, maybe an endocrinologist, and definitely a sex therapist who understands this model.
because the post-40 years really can be a time of renewal. I mean, free from some of those earlier burdens, armed with more confidence.
It has the potential to be the most satisfying sex of your life. It really does. But it requires you to be an active participant.
You have to challenge the ageism, understand the changes.
And consciously create the conditions, biological, emotional, relational, for your desire to thrive.
Be an active participant in your own sexual joy. The real deep dive starts when you decide to write your own pleasure narrative, no matter your age. What a powerful path to explore.